New Mexico Territory, summer of 1882. The heat was falling with the sun when they saw her, staggering through the mesquite with her dress torn at the side, palm pressed hard to her ribs, blood slipping between her fingers. She didn't call out, she only kept walking like she had nothing left but still refused to fall. 5 ranchers slowed their horses, none moved. Then one man swung down without a word, his boots hit dust. He walked straight to her like he knew she'd drop if he waited one more second. His name was Ethan Cole. He was 28, tall and lean, sun-dark, his hands the kind that knew fences and rope and long days. He did not hesitate. She sank to her knees before he reached her. "Easy," he said low, "steady. You with me?" Her lips were cracked. Fever burned under her skin, but she met his eyes. "Water," she whispered. He eased his canteen to her mouth. She drank in shaking sips, her fingers clutching his wrist. "Name?" he asked. "Amelia," she breathed. "Cole," he thought, when she glanced at him, noticing his surname on the canteen strap. She gave a thin, broken sound that could have been a laugh. "Married name, not any more." Ethan looked back at the others. None had moved. One turned his horse and rode on. "Cowards," Ethan muttered under his breath. "You've got a bullet," he said quietly. "I need to get you to shade." She nodded, breath tight, hand still clamped to the wound. Blood darkened the blue of her dress. He lifted her into his arms. She was too light. He could feel bone through her back. She hissed, but she didn't scream. His horse followed as he carried her down to a strip of cottonwoods along a slow creek he knew ran year-round. He set her beside the water, soaked his handkerchief, and pressed it to the torn flesh. "Who did this?" "3 men," she said. "They took the wagon, left me for dead." Her jaw trembled once and stilled. He didn't ask more. Not now. Not while she was holding on. The bullet had gone through but left a mess. He cut away fabric and packed the wound with wet cloth, binding it with strips torn from his shirt. "You need a doctor," he said. "Closest one's in San Miguel, 2 days hard ride." She didn't answer. Her eyes closed, breath thin. He stayed with her through the night, feeding her water in sips, keeping the cloths damp, listening to the wind move the leaves and the low sounds of the creek. She didn't rest easy. Fever brought shadows. Once, near dawn, her hand found his and gripped like a drowning person. "Nathan," she said, "please." "Who's Nathan?" Ethan asked softly. "My boy," she whispered. "He's 5. They took him." Her breath caught. "And Ruth, she's 7. She swallowed hard. "I hid them when the men came. I don't know if they—" Her voice broke. "We'll find them," he said. "I promise." She looked at him then. Not trust, not yet, but something close to it. A start. By morning she could sit up, barely. Ethan brewed coffee, bound the wound tighter with clean cloth, coaxed her to eat a few wild berries he'd found along the stream. When the heat rose again, they set out. He made a sling with his saddle blanket and kept her across his horse, riding slow, holding her steady in front of him. She trembled sometimes from pain, but kept her jaw locked, her eyes open. "You don't have to," she said once, voice thin. "I know." "Then why?" "Because I couldn't ride away." They reached a small house by dusk, a woman he knew, a friend who owed him a favor. Her name was Maria. She opened the door before he knocked. "Bring her," she said, already moving aside. Inside, Maria cleaned the wound proper and fed Amelia broth while Ethan went for supplies. That night, Amelia lay in a real bed. Her fever eased. Ethan sat by the window, keeping watch. The curtain lifted in a small wind. "I remember your name now," Amelia said, turning her head toward him. He looked over. "You do? You came through our town once with cattle, bought peaches from my stall." He frowned a moment, then the memory set. He smiled slow. "I remember." "I thought you were handsome," she said. "You should have told me." "I was married then." His smile faded but didn't leave completely. "I'm sorry," he said when she told him her husband died last year. "Fever." I'm not, she said quietly, then looked away, embarrassed. He wasn't kind. Ethan moved closer and crouched by the bed. You don't have to talk about that. I know, she whispered, but I want to. She told him a little, just enough to explain the silence she carried. He listened, his hand resting on the quilt near hers. We will find your children, he said gently. I swear it. She held his gaze. Why do you care? He didn't look away. I don't know, he said. But I do. She reached for his hand then. He took it. Neither let go. By the second morning, Amelia could sit without trembling. Her eyes had cleared. Ethan stepped onto the porch with coffee. She was there wrapped in a faded quilt, watching two magpies fight over a scrap. Maria said you were up before the sun, she said. Had to speak to a man in town, he replied. Name's Cal Boyer, he hears things. About my children, he nodded. Wagon passed through San Miguel 3 days ago. 2 kids with it. Boy had a limp. Girl wore a locket. Her hands tightened around the tin. Who had them? A man named Pike Crenshaw. Used to run horses up in Prescott country. Owes the wrong people. He's drifting east off the main trails. He wasn't one of the men who took the wagon. Number might have bought it. Silence settled. The wind moved dry grass. I should be the one riding after them, she said. You're not ready. Her eyes sharpened. I won't be kept behind like something broken. No one's keeping you, he said, voice low. But if you ride now, you'll tear that wound open and won't be any good to them or yourself. Her jaw set. Pride stood tall in her even when it scraped. He respected it. I know someone near Winslow, he said after a moment. Old friend runs with express riders. He might know Crenshaw's trail. She studied him. Why are you doing this? You already answered once. He looked out beyond the porch rail. When I was a boy, I watched my mother walk to the road every day waiting for a man who never came back. My father went out one winter to settle a debt. Never returned. No word, no body, just gone. He paused. If someone had found my mother bleeding in the dirt and rode away, I'd never forgive it. The door creaked. Maria stepped out. Senor Cole, your horse is ready, she said. I gave him oats. Thank you, Ethan said. Maria looked at Amelia. You call if you need. Then she slipped back inside. I'll be back by dusk, Ethan told Amelia. Stay off your feet as much as you can. You always give orders to women like that? She asked, one brow lifting. Only the ones that scare me, he said. A small smile touched her mouth. Not full, but it stayed even after he rode out. She watched until he was gone. Inside, she found a basin of water and a clean shift. She changed slowly, wincing. She didn't look at the wound. It would heal or it wouldn't. She brushed her hair free of knots and sat by the window, eyes on the trail. By evening, Ethan returned with dust on his hat brim and a folded paper in his saddlebag. He stepped onto the porch. They crossed the Pecos 2 days ago, he said, headed for the Mesa country. Crenshaw's got 2 men with him. And my children? Still with him, Ethan said. No harm done as far as anyone can tell. Amelia stood slow, steady. Then we leave in the morning. He didn't argue this time. We'll need blankets, shot, food for a week. I can ride. I know, he said, meeting her eyes. For the first time, something settled between them, not just shared purpose, the start of something that didn't need a name to be true. They left before first light. The sky was a soft gray. Amelia rode Maria's old gelding, a steady sorrel with a calm eye. Ethan traveled beside her, rifle slung across his back, saddlebags heavy with dried meat, soap, and a sack of beans. The land rolled ahead in long flats, broken by dark rock and narrow washes, cut like scars. They rode quiet most of the morning. The rhythm of hooves and leather said enough. Amelia's face was pale in the early light, but her posture stayed straight, and her hands were sure on the reins. Near midday, they stopped at a thin stream under junipers. Ethan unsaddled and brushed his horse, while Amelia knelt to cup water over her neck. When she rose, he watched her. "You favor your left side," he said. "It pulls less. You'll open that wound if you keep twisting." "I figured that out this morning." He stepped closer with a small tin. "Maria gave me this, pine tar and bear fat. For the skin, she didn't move as he lifted the hem of her blouse just enough to smooth salve over the bandage. His fingers were rough but careful. She stood still, breath shallow. "You always know what to bring," she said. "I've had practice, spent 3 winters trapping along the Gila. Took a musket ball through the thigh once. Stitched it myself with a bone needle." She glanced down at the tin. "You ever think about settling?" "Used to." "And now?" He met her eyes. "I don't know yet." They rode again when the sun bent west, the cottonwoods thicker near the rim's edge. Ethan watched for sign, broken twigs, a scrap of cloth. Near a bend, Amelia drew up. "There," she said, pointing. He dismounted, crouched over a wide, shallow print. "Wagon wheel," he said. "Fresh, less than a day." The trail dropped into a gully thick with cedar. Toward dusk, they found a cold camp. The ashes were still warm beneath when Ethan dug his hand in. "They were here last night," he said. Amelia walked the clearing's edge. A strip of pink fabric fluttered from a thorn. Her fingers shook as she freed it. "Ruth's," she whispered. "I tore this from her hem last spring on a fence." "They're close," Ethan said. "Push hard tomorrow. We catch them." "If he hurt them?" "He won't." "You can't promise that." "No," he said. "But I can put a bullet between his eyes if I need to." Her expression didn't change, but her shoulders eased, barely. She nodded. They camped off the clearing in a hollow, beside a dry arroyo, thick with sage. Ethan gathered dead fall while Amelia built the fire. He cooked beans and hard biscuit in a small skillet, split it even. They ate in silence, the firelight warming the edges of her face. "You said you used to think about settling," she said later, lying near the flames with one arm under her head. "What changed?" he asked, looking up at the stars, bright as salt on black cloth. "Didn't think I'd find someone who'd stay," he said. She was quiet a time. "I stayed in a house I didn't want for 9 years," she said. "Not because I was wanted, because I didn't know where else to go." He turned his head. "And now?" "Now I know where not to stay." He lay down then, not touching, but close enough to feel the warmth of her shoulder through the night chill. The fire sank, the sky deepened. When she spoke again, it was a whisper. "Tomorrow I get them back." "You will," he said, after a long moment, "then we'll see." They broke camp under a pale sky. Amelia moved with care and didn't ask for help. Ethan watched her tighten the saddle girth, steady, sure. The silence wasn't heavy. It was full, like the pause before thunder. They followed tracks east where the land stepped down in ledges and the juniper gave to tall pine. The trail narrowed and wound through stone and shadow. A hawk circled and vanished over a ridge. Mid-afternoon, Ethan raised his hand and stopped. Amelia reined beside him. Across a ravine, tucked between 2 outcrops, stood a wagon, one wheel propped with a limb. A thin line of smoke lifted from a low fire. She didn't speak, but her knuckles whitened. Ethan scanned the clearing. One man by the fire sharpening something, another pacing near the horses, a third half hidden behind the wagon. No sight of children. He tied his horse to a scrub pine and slid down the slope. Amelia was at his shoulder. "You stay here," he said. "I won't. They don't know we're on them. If I can get close, I'm not letting you walk into that alone." He didn't argue again. He handed her a small pistol from his bag. "You know how?" "My brother taught me when I was 15. Said aim low and shoot twice." He nodded. They moved along the ravine's edge where brush grew thick, circling downwind. At a rock ledge, he peered over. From this angle, he saw a small lean-to behind the wagon. The canvas shifted like something moved inside. He turned to Amelia. "They're there." Relief hit her face, then hardened again. He pointed with his chin. "That's Crenshaw by the horses. I'll draw him off. When I signal, you go." "What's the signal?" He pulled a strip of red cloth from his pocket. "I'll tie this to the mesquite when it's clear." She nodded, jaw tight. Ethan circled wide, keeping low, and stepped out slow into the clearing, rifle slung in plain sight, hands loose. Crenshaw looked up. "You lost," he said. "Looking to trade," Ethan said easy. "Heard you got a wagon. Not for sale. Didn't say I was buying. Got coffee and salt pork. Maybe we talk." "You alone?" Crenshaw asked, eyes narrow. "Mostly," Ethan said. The other two drifted closer, hands near belts. Ethan let the fire warm his boots. He didn't look toward the rocks where Amelia slid along the far edge, quiet as breath. "You don't smell like a peddler," Crenshaw said. "I don't dress like one either. What's your business?" "I'm here for the children," Ethan said. Everything stilled. Crenshaw's hand moved fast. Ethan moved faster. The rifle butt cracked Crenshaw's temple before his pistol cleared leather. Crenshaw dropped as if the ground yanked him. One man lunged. Ethan fired once, grazing the man's shoulder. The third turned to run and collided with Amelia. She struck him across the face with the pistol grip. He folded with a grunt and rolled in the dust. Ethan kicked Crenshaw's gun aside and turned for the lean-to. Amelia was already there, kneeling, pulling back canvas. A boy's head peered out, dark hair, eyes too big. Behind him, a girl clutched a rag doll to her chest. "Ruth," Amelia breathed. "Nathan." The girl blinked once and cried out. Something in the air broke. Amelia pulled them both into her arms and shook with relief, kissing their hair, their cheeks, their small hands. Ethan stood a few steps off, rifle low. The boy looked up at him. "Who are you?" "Just a rancher who got lucky enough to find your mama," Ethan said. "Is he taking us back?" Ruth asked. Amelia pressed her forehead to her daughter's. "We're not going back, baby," she said. "We're going forward." Later, Ethan tied Crenshaw and the others to the wagon wheel and left water and a little food they could reach when they woke. He and Amelia burned the lean-to and loaded what they could onto the horses. The children rode double with their mother, arms locked around her waist, not letting go. They camped by the Pecos where the water moved low and slow over warm stones. After the children slept near the fire, Amelia sat with her knees to her chest beside Ethan. "They remembered me," she said. "I was afraid they wouldn't." "They never stopped being yours," he said. She looked at him, unreadable, in the firelight. "I don't know where to go. I can't take them back to what we had." "You don't have to. I don't have anything else. You have me," he said, "if you want." She didn't speak for a long time. Then she leaned and set her head on his shoulder. He didn't move. Let the quiet hold them. The fire snapped soft. A nightbird called somewhere downriver. For the first time in a long time, she let herself believe they might not be running anymore. Mist hung over the river at dawn, softening the edges of cottonwood and stone. Amelia rose first, wrapped in Ethan's coat. Nathan tossed pebbles. Ruth whispered to her doll, waiting for an answer. Ethan rubbed down the horses. "You sleep?" he asked. "I did," she said. "Better than I thought." "They'll need shoes and coats," he said. "Ruth's is more thread than cloth." "There's a woman in Pine Hollow," Amelia said. "Sewed for my sister. Might still have her machine. It's half a day if we cut across the West Ridge." She hesitated. "I don't know if I can show my face there." "No one has the right to judge you," Ethan said. "They do, though," she said. "They'll see a widow with 2 children and no land, no name left but one I did not choose. They'll remember what I ran from, not what I ran to." "Let them remember," he said. "You didn't leave because you broke. You left because you survived. That isn't shame." She stared across the water, hands shaking a little. "I want them to have a life," she said. "One with walls that don't echo when they speak." "They will," he said, "if you let me help build it." The wind lifted her hair. She stepped closer, voice low. You mean to stay? I do. You take all of us? She asked, searching his face. I already have, he said. They reached Pine Hollow by evening as the sun slid behind low hills. A narrow town, 2 rows of clapboard, a blacksmith, a church bell that hadn't rung in months. Amelia led them off the main road to a small house under a leaned oak. An older woman opened the door, flour on her hands. Martha, Amelia said. The woman blinked. Well, there's a face I never thought I'd see. She looked at the children, then at Ethan, then back to Amelia. What do you need? Work, Amelia said, and my children need clothes. Come in, Martha said. Inside smelled like bread and lye. Ruth clung to Amelia's skirt until Martha crouched and handed her warm cornbread. Nathan took a piece with wide eyes and leaned against Ethan's leg like it was the most natural place in the world. Martha let them use the back room in exchange for mending and baking. It wasn't charity, it was 2 sides with a need. Ethan found work 2 properties over, fixing fences and seeing to a half-dozen head. Each evening he came back with dust on his boots and eggs in his bag. By the 3rd week, Amelia stood behind the mercantile counter, measuring sugar and folding paper over beans. She didn't flinch when townsfolk came in. Some looked away, some nodded, a few smiled. On an evening, warm enough to leave the door open, the children played under the porch. Ethan sat carving a small pine horse for Nathan while Amelia watched the shavings fall. You miss it? She asked. The quiet, the trails. Sometimes, he said, leaning back, but not like I thought. What changed? He looked at her, sure and slow. You did. She took his hand without hesitation. I want to marry you, she said. You sure? He asked. I lived a life where others told me what I was worth. I want to choose now. I choose this. She glanced toward the darkened room where her children slept, small shapes under quilts. I choose you. His hand tightened around hers. Then we'll make a good life, he said. Not perfect, not soft. Honest and full. The wedding was modest. A preacher from the next town over, a borrowed blue ribbon in Amelia's hair. Ruth carried wildflowers. Nathan stood by Ethan trying hard to look serious, one small hand wedged in his coat pocket. They married under the oak behind Martha's, leaves rattling in a dry wind. No music, just words, hands held tight, and the quiet promise that this time nothing would be taken. Amelia wore a dress Martha let down and hemmed. Ethan wore his best shirt scrubbed clean at the collar. When they kissed, they didn't rush. It felt like arriving after a long road. That night, with the house still, Amelia stood in their doorway watching Ethan light the last lamp. He turned, his face warm in the glow. You look like someone I dreamed, he said. You feel like something I built from nothing, she answered, and they needed no more words. Years passed. Amelia took over the mercantile when the owners retired. Ethan kept neat rows in the back garden and raised a few head out past the creek. Ruth learned to read. Nathan walked straighter each spring. They built a porch swing that creaked when wind came up the lane. Chickens scolded the dawn. Some evenings they sat shoulder to shoulder watching the sky turn violet. Amelia would lean into Ethan and rest her head. He'd kiss her temple, gentle and sure. Their life wasn't loud or grand, but it was theirs. It was home. Because sometimes the strongest stories aren't about the battles, but about the one who refused to ride away when everyone else did.